Alright guys, since it's October, I thought I might as well delve into a franchise that I really do love and enjoy, which is the Exorcist franchise, and I've got all five right here, and I've got Exorcist 3, the director's cut, also on the Scream Factory line that they made, and then I want to get the Scream Factory version of Exorcist 2, and I actually went out today to try to find it, but I couldn't find it anywhere, so I've got to buy it online. So unfortunately, I haven't got that one yet, and I'm so excited because I love Exorcist 2. Kill me, I don't care. I love Exorcist 2. But today we're going to talk about the first Exorcist movie. The one that started it all. The one that is considered one of the best horror movies ever made. So many people, like, whenever this movie came out, like the movie Psycho, I feel like this is one of the horror films that really did define like being scared in a theater. Now, for me personally, I do love this movie. I think it's fantastic. I don't get scared at it, but I don't get scared at many things in horror, really. And maybe that's why I enjoy horror so much. But I think watching this in a theater, like if you were in 1973, whenever this came out, seeing this in a theater, I feel like no matter if I was there and if I had not seen any type of horror besides like maybe Psycho, like in terms of like movies that scared audiences that to death, this would be a different story because this still holds up with the incredible makeup and effects. I feel like if I did watch this in 1973, not desensitized with everything we have right now, with all these movies, with CGI, with just as amazing practical effects that went on after this, I feel like seeing this, being blind to this type of movie for the first time in the theater in 1973 would have been incredible, and I would have probably been scared. But I've seen so many movies like this that even though this is fantastic and one of the best possession movies ever, it's not scary to me. But that isn't something I'm saying is a flaw with the movie. It's just we are so desensitized nowadays to what horror is, and there's so many movies that have done it the same way so many times. So this, unfortunately, there's no negatives towards this movie I'm giving it, but in terms of like being scared, if it was 1973 and I wouldn't saw it in the theater, yeah, I would have been scared, but nowadays I wouldn't have, just because we've seen so many things like this, unfortunately. But I still think this is a very creepy movie. This is really, really effective. And since this is a movie I love, I'm going to kind of go through the plot, like talk about things I love throughout the movie. So I always like the beginning of the movie. I like how it starts with that street, that like somebody is gliding over the street, like you just see the camera going on the street, and then it cuts to the Virgin Mary, and then later it shows the Virgin Mary in the movie where it's been tampered with and is all bloody, which makes sense with the Reagan McNeil character. So I thought that was a cool opening, showing the street, like something's just floating down the street and seeing the Virgin Mary and then showing it later. And then it shows in northern Iraq, which is a scene that I do really enjoy, but I always forget about the scene with Father Merrin in northern Iraq, and he finds this item that connects to the demon that will eventually come to form, and it will be good against evil, with Merrin and Pazuzu. And I know its name is not called, like, it's not called Pazuzu in this movie. I know Exorcist 2 gave it that name, and I don't know if like the book, if it was called Pazuzu in the book, but in this, it's got no name. So I wondered if it was called Pazuzu in the actual Exorcist book, but they just took it out because they thought it would be silly. And they saved it for Exorcist 2, which is totally fine, because I love Exorcist 2. It's so silly. But they didn't call the demon Pazuzu in this movie. It's just a demon. Like, it's just something is possessing Reagan. So it, at the beginning, the opening of the movie, I like in northern Iraq, it was cool showing Father Merrin going and finding this relic, and then he found these signs of the devil's coming. Like, the devil is coming for him. Like, and then you see that statue made out of stone of that devil-looking thing, and like, and then he looks around and sees dogs fighting each other. And I thought that just did a fantastic job of showing that, like, this is what's going to happen in the movie. And then the Virgin Mary being all messed up later. whenever the guy goes into the church. So it's cool how these signs are so subtle with the devil coming, or with the demon coming to fruition and possessing Reagan. But I really like that opening with Father Merrin. That's really cool, and it's just one I always forget about because honestly, it's a great scene, the opening, but it's just kind of where, like, if I had to choose a scene I would take out of this movie, I guess it would be that one, but it's still a great scene, the opening scene with him finding the relic, but it's just so different from the rest of the movie because after he sees the sign of the devil coming, it's just in Georgetown, Washington, the whole movie, and it's so different being in northern Iraq at the beginning, so then I just forget about it before, and whenever I rewatch it again, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot, he does go to northern Iraq in the beginning and sees the sign of the devil, so I still like the opening scene, it's just one I always forget about, because the rest of the movie is not set there, so I just think that's funny that the opening scene, I always forget how great it is, and I love that good versus evil opening, like just showing him seeing the devil, like, statue and seeing the dogs fighting and then all those different little subtle things to show that this evil is coming. Again, this does a great job of building up this evil. Like, it really does do a good job of building up this impending doom upon Marin and upon Reagan. And then we get the opening scene with Chris McNeil after the initial opening scene with Marin. Now, I really like this too because for some reason, I don't know why, it's just so interesting because this Chris McNeil character, she is an actress, and we just see her play her performance, like, on this college where, like, they're filming, and then she leaves after she's done filming, and she's like, oh, I'll just walk to whoever she's talking to, and she walks down the street, and of course the theme plays, you know, the theme of this movie that is iconic, one of the most iconic sounds of music ever, like one of the most iconic scores ever, and it's incredible. And I love how Exorcist 1 and 2 have just some of the most memorable music ever. And this one, just the opening score alone, where she's walking down the street, is just so haunting, but it's so good and it's so memorable, and I always think about that score when I just think of this movie or anything with the title Exorcism or Exorcist. Like, I just think it's so cool if that theme is just so embedded in my brain because it's so good, it's so memorable. The first two movies have such a incredible scores. I love the first two scores. And I really like that, and I like how it shows the movie after this does a great job of having development with Chris and Reagan, her daughter, Linda Blair, and how Reagan played with a Ouija board that was in this house because they just moved in because they're on location. And she plays with the Ouija board, and she talks about this friend named Captain Howdy, which is such a funny name. I love that name, Captain Howdy. But it just seems like a little playful thing. Like, it doesn't seem like anything that's gonna be anything that'll matter. This character, this Captain Howdy, she's just pretending she's talking to, even though she's not, because it's a demon. But also, this is an exorcist exorcism possession movie where, like, this, I don't know if this is the first time the use of a Ouija board was the possession. Like, this might have been the first time. I don't know. I haven't seen every movie in the world, but I feel like this might be one of the literal first times the Ouija board is used as the conduit, like, to bring the demon forth to possess the person who used it. But it's not like the movie Ouija or anything. Like, it's not stupid, but it's like, it's funny to see that this use of a Ouija board was something that I think might have been the first time this has ever been done. And correct me if I'm wrong, because I truly don't know, so don't quote me on that. But I feel like since this is out in 1973, this might have been the first time a Ouija board was used in a major horror movie that possessed the main character. And it's not even really talked about either. It's just like she just says, like, oh, I found this in the closet, and, like, I played with it, and Captain Howdy talked to me. And after that, the Ouija board's never brought up again. So I like that a lot, and I think this might have been the first use of a Ouija board in a horror movie like this, possession or exorcism movie. So I like that a lot, and I love how it does a great job with developing Reagan and Chris, and how Reagan's father is gone. He's, like, in Europe, and her and Chris McNeil and her husband are divorced or whatever. I think they're divorced. They don't directly say that, but I think they are. And there's a scene where like Chris is pissed on the phone, like screaming at the hotel that the ex-husband is supposedly at, and he forgot. Like he literally apparently doesn't care. From what Chris said, is like he doesn't give a shit that like he didn't want to talk to his daughter on her birthday because it was Reagan's birthday and like he didn't call her. And moments like that really do show that these characters have great, like, this feels really real. Like, this feels like a very real performance from everybody involved. Like, everybody in this movie, they feel so real. The writing is so fantastic. And I think it's just because it's from the book, which the writing, I guess, in the book is probably really good. I haven't read the book, but I'm assuming that it's probably pasted from that to this, or really close. But the writing in this is incredible, because it really gives these characters, this family, just Chris and Reagan, a real human-like, you know what I mean, like human-like in a movie. Like these characters are written to feel like actual human people. Like they actually have this real life like thing where like the writing isn't bad. It's very amazing. Where like these characters feel so real and the acting feels so real and so incredible. Just the performances from everybody all around are incredible in this movie. And scenes like that where like Chris is freaking out on the phone that like her ex-husband didn't call Reagan on her birthday, or whenever Reagan and her talking whenever Reagan's going to go to bed, and Reagan was saying like, do you love Father Burke? Do you love him like you did Daddy? Like lines like that I thought made these characters like, you felt a lot for them, and they felt so real because of this dialogue. And I really love the writing in this movie because these characters just feel so real, and you feel so much for them. But also, while this goes on, we also get Father Karras, who is the other character of this movie besides Marin, who really gets a lot of screen time. I love the fact that this character too, all these three characters, like Marin is only at the beginning and the end, but you get enough with Marin. But with the case of Chris and Reagan and with Father Karras, you get all of these scenes with them, with their family. Family is a big connection in this movie with these two groups of people, Reagan and Chris and Karras. And Karras in this movie is a priest who has a mother who wants to send her to a home, and the dialogue with her is really good, where she's like, Demi, I'm going to stay here. This is my home. And then later in the movie, she gets injured, and then she gets taken to a home. And the mother, before she dies, she's like, I can't believe you do this to me, Demi. And like she later dies, and like it gives such a good reason to love the Karras character, Father Karras, because because you feel so much for this guy, and like he loses his mother, and it plays into the ending, which I will talk about, but I love those scenes with him and his mother, and whenever she dies, you feel the grief for him, and then you understand as the movie goes along just how much of a rut he's in, and like both these sets of characters, Karras and then Reagan and Chris, they both have such ample screen time, or not ample, such great screen time, big amount, where like they are so developed and so interesting, and you feel so much for both of them. And I really think that these characters are just incredible. I love these characters so much. And whenever we get, like, the movie is, again, very subtle with scares, and with, it's not a jump scare movie, of course. Like, jump scares weren't even invented right then. Like, they didn't have anything that makes anything pop at him, go boo at you in this movie from 1973. But I love the subtle use, again, of whenever Reagan does get possessed, but it's so subtle, using the Ouija board. And then Chris, at the beginning of the movie, whenever you see her, she hears sounds up in the attic, like there's rats. And then the caretakers who are there he's like, no rats, there's no rats up there. And then like that sound, and then with Reagan saying like, she goes and sleeps with Chris one time in the movie, and she says, my bed was shaking, I can't go to sleep. And then later her bed is actually shaking whenever she gets fully possessed. But I love how subtle, like, whenever Reagan says that, it's like you don't think that she's being possessed. You just think that she's a child just saying this something like to get her to stay in the bed with her mother. Like, it's not something that you think is really happening. And again, this movie does a fantastic job of being so subtle with all these little scares. And I love it. I really do. And how, like, moments like that are great. And whenever Reagan suddenly gets possessed, it's really incredible. Whenever Chris has that party with all her guests, there's one guy who's an astronaut, or he's gonna be gonna go into space, and he says, like, yeah, I'm gonna go up there one day, and Reagan, in now her kind of quasi possessed mode, comes down to the party, and he says that, and then she says, you're gonna die up there, and then she pees on the floor, like literally pees for like a full minute. Everybody just looks and then turns their head and just kind of like turns away because they don't know how to react to Chris's daughter literally peeing on the floor. This like 10 or 11-year-old daughter, but no, she might be 12. I can't remember. But it's either 10 or 10 to 12 her age in this movie, but scenes like that are great where like she just pees on the floor and it's just like Chris in this reaction is like, is there's something wrong with her, but she doesn't think it's possession. And again, because this movie's so subtle, she just thinks something's wrong with Reagan, like Reagan's acting up. She even asked her later, like, why would you do that, Reagan? And Reagan just doesn't respond because she is possessed, but it's so subtle that it doesn't seem like it. And whenever she gets checked on, like whenever they go and check her into this place to see what's wrong with her, that moment, which everybody talked about this moment, whenever Reagan is sitting on that table getting checked on, it's just her making a blank face, laying down, and then that 1 second shot of that demon just up in the picture, just making like showing his teeth, making a growl. Even though it didn't growl, like you don't hear a noise, but he makes it look like he's going to growl or something. That is incredible. That is one of the creepiest images I've ever seen, and I love how it's 1 second in this movie. And I also forgot to mention, this is the director's cut, the extended one that I'm talking about. So if there's anything different that I mention, it might be because I've only watched the director's cut a lot more than the original cut. I've seen the theatrical cut, but just not as much. I've seen this extended director's cut more than the theatrical. But yeah, that scene where Reagan just sees that face, like, that is just iconic. One of the coolest, creepiest scenes ever. I love that scene so much. And then as she gets more possessed, this performance, I think, is still incredible from Linda Blair. And even though I don't think it's scary, I think it is still effective. It is creepy and effective. Every time she gets more and more possessed, she has a different voice speaking out of her. Like, there's one moment where Chris walks in on Reagan, and Reagan is literally being possessed by this demon. This demon has a crucifix and is literally, you don't see this, but you hear the noise. This demon possessing Reagan is literally stabbing her in her vagina, and there's blood all over her and blood all over the cross. And it is just disturbing. I love that. And then the demon just keeps screaming, "Fuck me, fuck me!" Like, it's really incredibly effective because it's just so. From Chris's point of view, it's like how would you ever have a kid that, like, how would you ever react in a situation where you had a kid that was literally possessed, something that people think is not really a thing? That is just so incredible. And there's one scene where, like, I didn't notice this a lot before. I think I noticed it once or twice, but I always forget about it, where Chris is walking into the house because there's nobody there except for Sharon, one of the caretakers. And she walks in, the lights dim out, and the lights turn on, and there's something in the background, and the demon's face is on that thing in the background, and it goes away quickly, and I always forget about that scene. And I don't know if that's only in the director's cut or the theatrical cut, because I don't remember. But where Chris is walking into the house, and the lights dimmer, they go out, and then turn back on, and the demon's just on something in the background, his face, and then it just goes away. That's so cool. Um, and then it's that moment where Chris comes in and talks to Sharon, and realizes that Father Burke has been killed because he was drunk, like he had died. But then you realize later in the movie that Reagan probably pushed him, possessed Reagan, pushed this drunk guy out the window and killed him because he fell down the stairs. Because they said like he didn't make it down to the final stair because he broke his neck halfway down or something. but but I like that scene with Chris coming in and realizing like where's Reagan, like what's going on, and then Sharon explains that horrible news. And then we get one of the coolest characters ever just after this, where Father Karras, after his mother's death, like he is just like trying to find things to get his mind off of it, and he encounters he encounters Kinnerman, who is this detective, who I forgot what the actor's name in this movie is, but this guy is incredible, and George C. Scott takes over in Exorcist 3, which is awesome, because George C. Scott is amazing, but this guy is amazing as well, this guy who plays Kinderman in this movie. And I love the fact that this character is so fun and so interesting. This is a character who loves movies. He is so fun. He's got such a fun personality. He's such a likable character. And this guy comes in pretty far into the movie, and he's got a good amount of screen time that's warranted to where this character matters so much, and his performance is just so incredible, and he's such a likable character. And he talks to Father Karras, and he slowly gets on the case of what has happened to Reagan, and happened to Father Burke, like that he died from, that he died earlier. And I really like that Kinderman character. He's so good. And I just love how everybody he speaks to asks you, do you like movies? The wife doesn't like to see one, or doesn't like to see him. I've seen this one 3 times in the theater. Like, lines like that I think are great from him. And this one scene is such a great, incredible character moment where, since he loves movies, he investigates with Chris McNeil, but then after it's over, he's like, can I have an autograph for my daughter? And she's like, okay, what's her name? And then he just smiles and said, oh, I was just kidding, it's for me. And the line like that just showed how incredible this actor was and how likable and charming his personality is. Like, this is such a good performance from that guy who played Kinderman, and I feel so bad that I don't know his name while I'm talking about it on this video. I know George C. Scott portrays him in 3, but I'm like, who? I wish I knew what his name was. I wish I didn't make this video without knowing, but whatever. Whatever. Doesn't matter. Even though it does to me. I really like how whenever we get towards the end, this is where it gets great, even though it's already incredible. The beginning, the whole movie before the ending was still incredible and still interesting throughout the whole movie, but the ending of the movie, the exorcism, where Marin comes in and Karras come in, and they both have to fight the demon, is incredible. I love the fact that both of these characters, and Chris McNeil too, because this is her daughter, all these characters that are fighting this possessed demon are doing it and have all had conflict with this demon. Where Father Marin has foreseen this happening, so he is coming to stop it. And Karras is being affected by his mother being killed. And whenever he goes to possess Reagan to try to fight this demon with Marin, the demon talks in his mother's voice, in Karras' mother's voice, and says like, "Why would you do this to me, Demi? Like why would you do this?" And like the demon is tricking him to where he is literally like literally like messing with his mind, like messing with Karras' mind. We're like, this isn't his mother he thinks he's talking to, but the demon can talk just like her, and the demon even says like, she's in here too, Karras, and then like the demon starts talking like the mother, and that just, I love that all of these characters have such a strong conflict with this demon, and this demon is such a horrible thing that by the end it works so well whenever they actually free the demon and kill it. or kill it, I guess. It's not dead, but whenever they finally free Reagan, that just, like, it felt so warranted because these characters had such a conflict with this demon, with Karis and his the demon talking in his mother's voice, how Karis has lost everything and then has to deal with that, and then how Marin foresaw this and has been haunted by this and wants to finish off this demon, and how Chris is her daughter and she is scared for her life that her daughter is gonna not be ever just be possessed her whole life or killed, whatever. So I love that whenever they finally defeat the demon, that it feels so warranted because these three characters had such a strong reasoning to kill it, and because this demon is such a horrible thing. And I love how Karis, unfortunately, I love this, even though it's so sad that Karis, by the end, he literally grabs possessed Reagan and says, "Take me, take me," and then the demon goes into him. And what Karis does is a self-sacrifice. He literally jumps out the window with the demon in him and dies. He falls down that extensive flight of stairs and falls down at the end. And then, like, one of the other priests comes down, holds Karis' hand while he's dying, and says, "Will you be forgiven for your sins?" Blah, blah, blah. And, like, he can't speak. He just moves his hands whenever the priest is holding him. So I love that self-sacrifice, and it's so sad because Karis just got the worst of, like, got one of the worst things in this movie. Even though Reagan has got possessed the whole movie, like, that's horrible, but Karis lost his mother, and this demon taunts him throughout. While he does that, he loses everything, and then he literally dies in self-sacrifice just to save this girl, and I love that. It's just so good. Really, really good. And then, of course, by the end, Reagan's okay, and then I like how Kinderman talks to that other priest, and this is different from the theatrical cut, I think. This ending is different, where, like, Kinderman comes back and talks to that other priest and says, like, "Do you like movies? And, like, come see one with me sometime," which is supposed to set up Exorcist 2, but that didn't happen until Exorcist 3, because this does connect Exorcist 3, that ending, to this one, the director's cut, where Kinderman's talking to that priest. And the director's cut, from what I know, is different because they added scenes into this later. The only things I know that are really different in this version is that Reagan runs down the stairs, does like a spider walk, and then, like, blood comes out of her mouth. That's really effective. And then the scene with Kinderman at the end. But I think there's probably added scenes throughout that I can't tell the difference to, because, like I said, I've seen the theatrical cut, but not enough to say I'm an expert on the theatrical cut. This one I'm more of an expert on the director's cut, so this is definitely one talking about the director's cut and not theatrical, but just, I loved everything about this movie rewatching it. I love these characters. I love how well written they are. I love how interesting they are. I love how this is a horror movie, but it's about these characters. It is a incredibly strong character piece. All these characters brought together by this evil force and fight it off to have some sort of peace. Just everything about it is incredible. The makeup is incredible as well, still incredible. All the performances are fantastic, writing's fantastic, the mood, the pacing, everything is just incredible. The score. So I love this movie again rewatching it. Now, next up in the Exorcist films will be Exorcist 2, The Heretic. Now, whenever I talk about that one, you'll understand my love for it, but it's hard to talk about without fully going into detail because everybody hates that movie, but I don't. It's a weird one. You'll have to see in my next Exorcist video whenever I do my video on Exorcist 2. So thank you guys so much for watching my review of The Exorcist. Like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want. Thanks for watching.